My name is Jackie McGuinness. Right now I should be seeing, let me get rid of my chat anyway. I should be seeing everyone's faces at this point before I start sharing the screen. Is that true? Because I am like, what? Anyway, so one of the reasons why this came out was because the idea of the pandemic has put everybody in this tailspin, because now we have to do things so differently. There are so many things going on, so many emotions, fears, mental, everything, you name it, had happened in everybody's world. And so now that New Jersey is reopening, how are we transitioning? How are, after being on unemployment, of being, on some kind of, government assistance, of now we're at home and we've got our kids at home, and we're just, it's too much. It's too much. It's a lot. It's a lot. And so there were many things that were, there were many things that were just, that we just weren't ready, like just from a business perspective, from a societal perspective. So now we're going to have to learn how to do things differently. And so how do we do that? Okay, so I will start sharing my screen right now. And so it's so wonderful to see everyone. Thank you so much. Right, share. Okay. And let's go up here. And this is what drives me nuts, is this, and share. Whew.
No.
I know. I present. Got it. Okay. So reopening of New Jersey, a post-pandemic outlook, the implications, on the New Jersey working woman. Okay. And that's really what we're looking for. And this is just a beginning conversation, to be sure, that's happening all across the state. So during this presentation, just remain muted. You can put any questions, of course, in the chat. And as you're coming in, if you need to rename yourself, that's what we would like, because we'd like to know where you are from. So if you're from Somerset County, if you're from Atlantic County, Burlington, even if you're outside of the state and you just saw this and you think that this could be something interesting. So if you could please do that, that would be really great. By no means is this a deal breaker. So if you can't figure it out, or if it's so frustrating, you're like, it's not worth it, it's okay. We're just so happy that you're here. Okay. Right now at this point, we should be recorded. And so just wanted to put that out there, even though I know that it's been reiterated. We just want to make sure. Okay. So here's our agenda for today, just to kind of give us an idea of what's going to be going on. I'm becoming better at that. You obviously we're going to have a welcome from Karen Brown, who is our president of AAUW New Jersey. And we're going to go through a little bit of an icebreaker exercise to kind of prepare us for that discussion that's going to be coming. Yes, you will get introduced to your panelists, and your panelists are going to be introducing themselves. Okay. And so I think that, we all need to share the load. Then we will get into a discussion. We'll get your thought processes in a breakout session, because sometimes speaking in a big group is very daunting for some people. So we want to make it a little bit easier for them to, that if they want to say something, then they can feel they can. We'll wrap it up, and then we'll have questions and answers as necessary. How long is this presentation? That seems to be the big question of the day. You know what, we're going to try to keep this at 90 minutes. We're going to try to keep the time and just to keep it moving. Okay. And so again, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. Okay. So Karen, you have the floor.
Okay, welcome. So just in case you haven't heard, the American Association of University Women is a national organization with the mission of working for gender equity and economic security for women and girls. Since 1881, we've been leading the fight for fair pay and economic opportunity for women through research, education, and advocacy. Our AAUW Equity Network is quickly growing, and it's an inclusive learning community with the goal of equity for all. Next slide. Here in New Jersey, we have approximately 1,500 members, 21 local branches with programs and local scholarships. We sponsor STEM events to encourage more young women to pursue STEM careers because they're lucrative and women are in demand in those fields. And also we have lots more information, and this program will appear on our AAUW New Jersey website. So thanks to everybody for coming out this morning.
All right, thank you so much. So one of the first things I want to do is just a little exercise. One of the things that I've been learning about is just kind of leading people into conversations and whatnot, okay? Another thing to do is, I know that we've all been looking at the screen a lot. You know, we are on the screen daily, probably more than what the FDA recommends, okay? Or, you know, just for the brain. So at any time that you're really feeling tired, what somebody was telling me that neurologically this helps is to take your eyes off the screen, look at a spot about 10 feet ahead of you or somewhere else where you're just kind of focused on something else. Do that for about 10 seconds and then bring it back to the screen. It really does work, okay? So that's a little tip that as you go through all of those things to keep your brain engaged. How about that, if that's the question? All right, so what do you see? So this is not the actual slide that I want you to look at. This is the preface. And what I'm going to show you is a picture, and I'm going to give you about 15 seconds to look at this picture, okay? And I just want you to consider what you're seeing. Don't put anything in the chat yet. Just have your thought in terms of what this picture looks like. And yes, I will be timing you. Sounds good. Okay. You know, okay, so what I would like you to do, because I'm not going to be able to see the chat, okay? So I can only give you the instructions, all right? And then someone else will tell me out what is happening, okay? Which is very interesting for me because that's like so giving up of control that I don't know what to do. So anyway, what I would like you to do is 1 or 2 words I want you to put into the chat what you know, how you're looking at this picture, but don't hit enter. Just put it in the chat, okay? We're going to hit enter together. So just in the chat, write down what you think the picture looks like or what it is, and then just hold your roll, okay? Don't hit enter yet. And I'll give you a second to collect your thoughts on that. Okay, now I would like you to hit enter. So enter your thought, and you should see a whole lot of things coming through the chat relatively quickly. I hope. Is that what's happening?
You want us to read them out? Want me to?
Read a couple out, please.
Yes, so we've got bird feathers, fire, dynamic fusion, color energy, fire vibes, a jellyfish, flames, a flower, moving light, flower, firework over water, flower, lotus flower in water, flower, flower in water, flower, a feather duster, a small undersea creature, flower, flowers, yep, flower. Okay.
All right, so here's the thing. We are all looking at the same picture, the same situation. But notice that we all have different perspectives, different thought processes, whether that's from maybe you're a left-sided person, right-sided person, maybe your experiences, So, right, we might see a flower, but then you see a couple different other thought processes, okay? And so that's what we're going to be talking about today, okay? So I'm going to slide. So our panelists, so what we're going to talk about is, right, what happens now? New Jersey is reopening. What are we going to do? How are we going to support each other so that we're not being left behind, as so many are? How do we, New Jersey women, help other New Jersey women? Not that other women aren't important, but how are New Jersey women going to help each other? And we have so many organizations. And the question is, are we being left behind? Or are some being left out because they just don't know? So as we go through our panelists' introductions, they're going to give you who they are, where they're from, and their particular perspective on how they're looking at the question of, now that New Jersey is open, what is the implications of the working woman? And they may give you some other nuggets of information. So let's just get this let's get this show on the road. Oh, maybe the viewpoint, what someone was mentioning, is that it's better to have the speaker view, or no, not for this situation, maybe, I'm not sure. Okay, all right, but here's our first panelist.
All right, Jackie, thank you so much. I I was hoping I would go a little later.
Oh, I'm so sorry, I did this alphabetically.
You know what? I'm kind of used to it with the C. Yeah, that's fine. First of all, thank you so much for having me here, everyone. I am going to bring you up here so I can kind of see you here. So my name is Farheen Choudhary. I am a few things. I'm from Denmark, Scandinavia, but I've lived here in America quite a few years and have established myself. I have a family here, husband and twins who are in high school. I am a founder of a small business called Aristotle Communications. And what I do is it's a consulting firm. We do organizational development and essentially assisting any size company with their diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. So I will go in as a consultant, help around those initiatives, and that's really what my lens will be today as well. I kind of stand on three legs with my company. One is diversity, equity, and inclusion. The other one is leadership development, and then organizational communication. That's kind of the academic background I have. Now, these three really fuse very well together. They really pollinate each other well. They inform each other well. I am fixated on getting women into C-suite decision-making positions and everything that has to do with, I know it's so cliche, but women empowerment, really getting women to be in key roles and key positions in order to be influencers and create that really strong infrastructure with each other. So I will do a lot of leadership development coaching for women. And again, back to consulting for companies as well around D&I. And really my lens today, I guess I also have to tell you that, you know, apart from my company, I'm also an adjunct professor at Rider University in Lawrenceville, and I teach public speaking and management in diversity and inclusion. And I'm a mentor. I'm a mentor of at the Women's Leadership Council, so mentorship is also very near and dear to me. And at the President's Council for Inclusion at Rider. And I'm a chair at the chamber of the Princeton Chamber at their D&I committee. So I'm very much about D&I, very passionate about it. So my lens today will essentially be about diversity, equity, and inclusion / leadership development around women and how we can empower and help each other from a structural point of view, but also from an individual point of view. So thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited.
Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, next.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Kitora Harris. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So I'm an educator. I'm a special education teacher at Burlington, BCIT, Burlington County of Institute of Technology. I work at the Medford campus. I've been teaching over for 20 years. So I have a couple things under my belt, like most of us, and got a college education, doing other things. I'm a lifelong learner. I love education. It's very important. I also have a very energetic 5-year-old that I'm always keeping my eye on. And she attends the Medford Public Schools. I have a partner, Mark. So we're raising our daughter together, and I have a great tribe, my pod, my parents, her grandparents, who helped me to raise my daughter. So the lens I'm looking through, like I said, I'm an educator. And during this pandemic, it has been very unstable for most parents with young children in school, or when the pandemic first started, no daycare. So what do you do with your children? And the burden was on women, of course. We had to take off from work. So that's the lens I'm looking through. I'm very excited to be here. Changes have to be made in our society. They're outdated. So policies are so important to keep abreast with what's happening. So we are opening right now, but a lot of people, including myself, are very hesitant of taking the mask off. So, and being around people, so to ensure that this virus can leave us, just go. So, so that's it. I'm excited. I'm glad that all women are here and to really learn from each other. And
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Go to the next one.
Hello, my name is Elaine Ingulli. I'm here representing South Jersey Now, the Alice Paul chapter, which, like the AAUW, is an organization that fights for equity and for women's rights and has done so for half a century. And the South Jersey Now in particular is the largest chapter in the state. And we engage in a full range of political activity. My own background is that I taught college for 30 years. I'm a lawyer by training. I taught business law and women's studies. And I've been somewhat of an activist. When I retired from Stockton, I looked around for something to do and connected with NOW, an organization I had belonged to for my entire adult life, but had simply paid dues, and became involved with the organization and became part of the program committee. And so that's what I've been doing with my time. I also write postcards almost unendingly to both voters and elected officials. But because of my background as well as NOW, the perspective that I'm taking today is that of a feminist legal perspective. And like Keturah, when I began to think about today, I did some research and some reading, and I came to the realization that this is pretty obvious, but COVID really has surfaced problems that existed before. I don't think it really created so many new problems. I think they were there. And I don't have any children. I'm married for 50 years. I don't have any children. But it seems to me that the lack of a care infrastructure and a care society is the biggest problem that women face. We know that a huge 45% of the daycare spots or the childcare spots disappeared during COVID. We don't know how many of them will come back. We know that there are two intertwined problems. Care is too expensive. Families can't afford it. Some 20, on average, American families spend 25% of their income on childcare. Without government support, it averages something like $10,000 a year, and that's not for the highest quality care. At the same time, those who provide the care are underpaid. The average salary for care workers is 17% are below the poverty line of $22,000 a year. And the vast majority of care providers are women of color. So as we go through today, I'm going to talk about some of the proposed legislation. That's the law that comes into to address these problems. Obviously, we haven't been able to do it without laws, and I think we need laws to address these.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. And you'll see your slides. So then when we come back, you'll see, I did put the,
Okay, we may or may not need it. Yeah.
okay, so we're there. Okay, next.
Hello there. I'm Kimberly Iozzi. I'm the Executive Director of Dress for Success, Northern New Jersey, 10 counties. And it's such a mouthful to say all that, but we have to specify the 10 counties because there is another affiliate in New Jersey that's 7 counties. So we have to make sure that people know which ones we belong to. So when people hear Dress for Success, immediately they often think about donating clothes to support women. And that's a lot of what our organization used to be about, and we still do that. But our real purpose is that we're part of a global initiative. We're one of 150 affiliates worldwide that is designed to empower women to achieve economic independence by providing them with a network of support, the professional attire, and development tools to help them thrive in work and in life. So there's a larger purpose than just the clothing. Our affiliate served about 1,200 women last year during COVID. And our women have been changing, even before COVID, the women that we serve. We're seeing a large number of women who are not just unemployed, but underemployed. And we're helping women who have been downsized because of their age, even before COVID. And so the women that we're serving, and I guess the lens that I'm coming from is really all women, whether you're working or not, and how it's impacted them. And one of the terms that we keep hearing is going back to normal. And if you think about it, normal wasn't that great. Before COVID, normal, was people still being left out of being hired and being screened out. So we're coming at it from a perspective of let's reset. Let's reset what we accept as appropriate work standards. Let's reset what we're looking for and what we're willing to take on, especially as women who are caregivers and mothers and whatever. But for the companies to reset and finally get some more right, and more right in their hiring and promotion practices, in their flexibility structures and things like that. So we're doing a lot of work with our corporate partners and the women that we serve, because ultimately our job is to serve all women. So if we're working with the corporations and we're making them aware of the challenges, and now we're seeing them act on it, and that's really what our job is. So other than that, I am a mom of 2 boys. When I sent this in, it was ages 5 and 8, and today I have a 9-year-old now. So I'm very excited for that, and I'm just really happy to be here with such a great panel.
All right, thank you so much. We certainly appreciate it, and happy birthday to the young man. Absolutely.
Thank you.
And next, thank you.
Hi, this is Debra Lancaster, and I'm with the Center for Women in Work at Rutgers University. And is this going right? Let's see. Starting my video. I didn't have my video on. So again, my name is Debra Lancaster, and I'm with the Center for Women in Work at Rutgers University. And I've been with the center for several years, but the center is not new to Rutgers or new to New Jersey. We've been around for almost 27 years, and studying, doing programming and public engagement activities on issues that affect working families. and, centering women in our work. So I would just say that, I'm not sure what else there is to say. I am really excited to be here in the company of the panelists and the other women that have joined us today. And that, what we see at the center is that the COVID, is some of the same things that other folks have already echoed, which is that it's challenged almost every aspect of our economic, political, and social landscape, and is really pushing us to think about how we care for each other in the economy and outside of that, as well as highlighting the structural inequalities that, of course, did exist prior to the pandemic, but make it almost impossible to look away. Thinking about the structural inequalities, the social safety nets that have been left quite weak, and the vulnerabilities in our institutions have all really been revealed over the past year. And in fact, about a year ago, we were on a different panel, or I was on a different panel with, and maybe some of you were there, with the governor's office talking about, the pandemic as a unique crisis for women in the state. And here we are thinking about recovery. And at that time, I was just looking back at my notes here, 95% of center-based care was closed a year ago. And so, and also even thinking about after-school programs, there weren't enough slots for things like after-school programs before the pandemic, and those were largely shut down during the pandemic and continue to be inaccessible, or certainly unevenly accessible through today. So the lens that we do a lot of different work at the Center for Women in Work. We have some training and education and programming we've done for a while now that one of my colleagues leads on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we work with corporations and nonprofit organizations to advance their DEI work. And we do some women's leadership development training also. But the lens that I'm looking at, and that has been kind of the thing that the center has done for over 26 years, is really looking at the large majority of women workers who are really what I think the United Way would call the ALICE population, the asset limited income constrained employed set of workers, which is at least before the pandemic 40% of families in New Jersey, and has probably grown a bit. And so what that means is that, and it's a great resource. So, just Google Alice and United Way, but that's a really great map or example of where most families are at in our state in terms of living day to day, paycheck to paycheck, and struggling to meet basic needs. And we're also, and we've largely over the past year and prior to that been focused on the undervaluation of women's labor and care work and inequality that care workers, the structural inequality that care workers confront. And one of my colleagues, a fellow panelist, was talking about, I think, childcare. And, we've been doing some work on home health aides. Of course, they're essential workers in pandemic and non-pandemic times. And in New Jersey, those salaries range from $23,000 to $25,000. And like many undervalued jobs, this one's done disproportionately by women and people of color. 95% are women in New Jersey, more than half are immigrants, and almost 70% are Black or Latina. And we know that those workers and those women are critical to families across the socioeconomic spectrum, and yet they don't earn enough money and have typically no benefits to care for their own families. So those are the types of issues that we're focused on at the Center for Women in Work. And I'll stop there, Jackie, because I know there's lots to cover today. Oh, I should say, so I do have two children. They're at home, 20-year-old and a 17-year-old. So.
Yes, and you were just listening to him speak this morning, right?
He introduced President Holloway from Rutgers University at a Model UN conference. I'm a proud mom. I'm a proud Rutgers person this morning that he took time to come and really, actually the theme of his talk to these students from around the country and around the world was really think about the people behind the guys, and it's largely been guys, but we know that's changing, signing the bills, making history. Who's the person who's made the bed? Who was left after, King gave speeches in Alabama? Like, who was left? Who are the activists and the advocates and the workers left? Because those folks were also making history. So I thought it was very moving, right? And fantastic. So I'm a proud mom and proud Rutgers person this morning.
Hey, thank you so much for sharing that. And not last, well, last but not least, how about that, is Rebecca Perrone, and she will speak her story.
Good morning, everyone, ladies. Thank you for having me here. I'm so glad that we have this panel of women. I'm looking forward to having a discussion with regards to our current situation with the pandemic. As it states, I'm Rebecca Perrone, born in the South Bronx of New York, one of 11, and I do have two daughters. They are both home. One is a college student, she's 24, and my youngest is 15. What it doesn't say here, I forgot to mention, I also have a 9-year-old who has been recently staying with me, which is my sister's daughter because of the COVID pandemic. My sister's an electrician in New York City, and because of everything that happened with the students being sent home, she was not able to, to teach her child at home, as most of us had to do. So she's here with me. So I do have 3 daughters here, slash me. I'm also employed at the Educational Testing Services. So that's my daytime job. I work in the Strategic Marketing Analyst Department, where I'm the SharePoint designer for my department. And I'm also like the councilwoman of Willingboro, New Jersey. And let's see, I'm looking forward to a discussion to see what we can come together. I'm hoping to have some takeaways, because actually as councilwoman of Willingboro, a lot of women still are at home that were employed and still are employed for Willingboro. However, because the students were at home and now they're partially hybrid and partially at home, it's really not a conducive situation for women. And unfortunately, even though there are 2 parents in the house, mom and dad, everything pretty much fell on mom's lap, right? And so what does that look like as far as programs and takeaways? I'm hoping I can have something for takeaways that I can bring back to the council level of my community and assist with some of our community members, not only just the employees that work for the township, but also the residents. And so I'm looking forward to the discussion, and thank you again for having me here.
All right. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us. And you guys did a great job going through all of your bios and whatnot and your lenses. And so I certainly appreciate that. The conversation, actually, this idea came about because I had a conversation with a young woman named Jasmine, and we were trying to figure out ways of trying to reach different women in different walks of life, and how we as AAUW, how we could somehow bring their concerns to the forefront. So whether that is, it doesn't matter the age, because everybody has been impacted, but we're looking at the working woman, you know what I mean? Whether that is you're a 21-year-old, whether you have college, don't have college, you're just trying to make it work. You're trying to keep your family intact, whether you are, a councilwoman, or you are an educator, or you are, working in nonprofits. So the question would be, again, how do New Jersey women help each other? Do we need to come with a platform? Are there platforms available? So these are the conversations that we would like to have. And it looks like time-wise, we're good. I'm trying to keep it moving here so that we are doing our thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can see each other. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. All right. And go on the gallery view so that you can see each other as you are speaking. If you have questions, most certainly raise your hand, you know what I mean? But for right now, we're just trying to keep it into the chat so that, again, there will be time as we go into a breakout room, as you try to kind of like, unpack everything that's been given, maybe that you have some comments or some questions. So certainly we'd like to have some takeaways, but if it's just more questions, then maybe it's another opportunity for us to come together or to find other resources so that we can like get this done, okay? So I have, originally 5 questions, but we will see where this goes because again, I would like to make sure that you have some time to get into the breakout sessions, okay? And one of the questions is going to come from Jasmine Davis, who was my inspiration for this because she is someone who has other workers, other people that she is close with who are having difficulties or who are having some struggles with just trying to find their way and just trying to navigate the best way to be able to work, keep their family without being, so totally like just have literally the weight of the world like on their shoulders of how they're going to be able to do it. So Jasmine, I would like you to toss out the first question, please. Oh, and panelists, if you would like to address the question, just do me a favor and just have your hand raised. So then that way there's no pressure of you. We all want you to participate, but by no means there are other questions in which you can participate with, but don't feel the enormous pressure of trying to answer something if that's not the best question for you to answer. Fair? That's what I've been saying to my kids every day. I'm like, fair, is that okay? So, okay, so Jasmine, please.
The first question is, what are some new kinds of support systems that women may need for going back into the workplace? So policies in the workplace, procedures in the workplace, childcare, flexible work hours. What are some infrastructures that you think are going to change from pre-COVID to post-COVID with going back into the workplace?
And I'm tapping this into the chat so that you could at least kind of be familiar, because that was a mouthful. So we're looking at the infrastructures. Thank you.
I could say something.
Oh, okay. Yes.
I mean, I could say something about that because, as I said, I've been looking at legislation, and it's been very interesting to me that in the state of New Jersey, there are proposals that are very diverse that would deal with the lack of childcare, starting from simply creating 2 task forces. One would be on how to provide universal childcare throughout the state for everyone who needs it. And the other is to look specifically at what are called childcare deserts, places where most of the, there aren't enough spots for children. Either there are no spots for care or there are too few spots for care. Both of those proposals are sitting with the Women and Children Committee of our legislature, but I can't find out why there have been no hearings or even any dates for hearings. And that things don't become law until there are hearings about them. So some of the proposals are to require all government agencies to have childcare facility or childcare for their workers, to set up tax credits for businesses to build childcare centers and childcare facilities, to allow income tax credit to the people who provide them, oh God, I have this entire long list here, to revise the methods to determine subsidies for childcare, to provide gross income tax credits to this I thought was brilliant, to the staff members at childcare centers. So that sort of addresses the need to pay more by giving them at least a tax break, although when you look at it, it's a very small amount. But those, you could either give some incentive to business, or you can give some incentive to the government. The Federal Family Act would provide for paid leave for people. So I think some of those laws, I think we need to put some pressure on our legislators to address them, to move them forward, not just to introduce them, but to actually act on them, so that there really is some incentive for people to create more childcare spots for people.
Okay, thank you.
Incoherent, but.
Okay. Oh, hands. Awesome. Okay. So I'm just going to go from left to right on my screen. So I'm just going to go with Rebecca, who's on my left. Okay. And then I'll slide on over to the other side.
Okay, thank you. So at ETS, all the employees have been sent home. So I do work remotely. And the only people who are in the building are the IT staff and certain small areas of people. Most people have been sent home, and they actually sold some of their buildings because they're planning to keep it this way indefinitely. Now, the office that I work in is in Princeton, New Jersey. So that's ETS. And so it seems like this is going to be the new norm, even when everything opens up. On the council level, although schools have been opening up, in Willingboro, they're partial hybrid. So the schedule is completely chaotic, where students are in school maybe Monday and Wednesday, but then they're home Thursday and Friday. So as you can imagine, the parents that live here, that's not, normal for her work day, right? So with, at least on the council level, we set policy, right? So now we have our employee handbook policy. Now, what I'd like to see done and added to our policy are, as I'm going to ask about flexible work hours, where if her child is at school Monday and Wednesday, she could actually leave the office and work the rest of the day from home. Currently, our staff is not set up to work from home. So we have been purchasing laptops, and I'm working on getting a better technology system with regards to being able to work remotely, VPN. Some people may know what I mean when I say VPN. Currently, Willingboro's administration is not set up that way, although the rest of the world, has VPN. So these are topics that I speak about at our council level. And I think that's going to be really the new norm. I would love for everyone to be able to take their mask off. We all have the shot, the vaccine, we're all safe. But really, that's not really going to happen in the next 2 years. I don't see that happening. So actually setting up today where the women who are employed, at least in Willingboro, can actually pick up her laptop and work the rest of the day from home. So shared, work days, so she doesn't lose her 40 hours of work, because that's important too. She still has to maintain her home and her day. Just wanted to add that to the discussion.
All right. Well, thank you. Farheen?
I love that point about the laptops, Rebecca. I was also reading a report, actually. I think monster.com did that under the pandemic. They actually sent out laptops to women and to families where, just to make it more flexible and more, just accommodating, and not laptops to them, I'm sorry, to their kids, the kids doing school from home. So yeah, that's a great point. In terms of answering Jasmine's question, and, from where I'm coming from, for me, and where I'm coming from, the approach is, we need companies to commit to diversity and inclusion. We need companies, we are talking infrastructure, we need that commitment. More and more companies are obviously saying, yes, jumping on the bandwagon. However, it is a bandwagon because there's pressure, and a lot of companies actually, the intent is there, the willingness is there, but there's lack of education, there's lack of information. How do I, as a partner in a company, or the leader of the company, I'm a small to medium size, whatever, how do I create these initiatives at my company? I want to, I just don't know where to. And here's where I'm going to, as the chair of the Chamber D&I committee, do a little plug for, and please, I'm going to share it with Jackie too, and you can please share it with your community. In September, we're actually, the Princeton Chamber is doing a conference in September. I believe it's September 30th, but we're still discussing details, but it will be in December, about the business of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So what does it mean? Where do you start where do you start? What's step number one when you are interested in introducing these initiatives at your company? So that's number one, infrastructure wise, just structurally, that commitment from companies. Also, I would say that in order for us to address women and to get more women back, but also, as was highlighted before, COVID-19 actually just exacerbated an existing problem, a challenge around women at work. Typically industries that are women heavy have been affected, hospitality, and so those industries were mostly affected. So a lot of pre-existing challenges were already, they just came to the forefront. And it's wonderful that we're having a conversation and more conversations about this. So in order for women who dropped off the job market, in order for them to come back, and for those women who might have taken a little gap and want to perhaps reevaluate their careers, a good place to start is actually looking at the whole recruiting process. How are we building our pipelines? What are companies doing in order to attract women into there? So the commitment is number one, but then, okay, how do you now get people, a diverse talent pool, into your companies? So, HR, talent acquisition, need to look at how are they drafting their job descriptions? Are they using gender coded words? Usually that's the biggest, challenge right now. A lot of women will only say and apply to job ads if they are 100% meeting their requirements, whereas men, 67% of men will say, you know what, I got it. So, there are tools out there. You can run your ads through it, and that program will give you back what words are sort of more male dominated and which ones that you can use that are more inclusive. So getting and building your talent pool is another major part that we need to focus on as companies. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Awesome. Thank you. And I think, Kim, did you have something?
Yeah, not to reiterate what everyone else already said, a couple extra things, in addition to the before and after care for children, expanding remote and flexible work, but also expanding policies for how existing paid and unpaid leave can be used. It's not that hard to do. And so if companies remain rigid, it's really going to impact people negatively. The other thing is modified performance reviews. If you're in sales, for instance, or you've had certain targets, if companies remain rigid on how they're evaluating their employees, they're setting their employees up to fail. So that was one thing. Building on Farheen's discussion with diversity, equity, and inclusion, this is an opportunity now to expand on those and to actually take action. And so, yes, in the hiring process, resume screening that removes demographic identifiers, getting rid of those things, changing the way resumes are submitted. A lot of the companies that we work with use artificial intelligence, and our women are screened out before they even have a chance. And so fixing that, doing succession planning, that includes diversity analytics in that plan. And also having inclusion training for all settings, whether you're Zooming or you're live, being inclusive of your team. One of the biggest challenges that our women are talking about is the loss of connectivity, the loss of their network. You know, it's not like you go to the water cooler anymore and, you know, have small talk and pass people. It's different. And so they feel isolated, and now they're not able to build their networks the way that they used to be able to in the old workplace. So looking for ways to create networking for women, I think, is also really important. And mentoring, I forget which program, you know, is offering the mentoring. We need to be there to lift each other up. And it doesn't matter what industry or whatever, we are all women in New Jersey going through some of the same hurdles, and we do it in different ways. But I think just reaching out and extending, you know, a hand to another woman it has such an impact.
Okay.
Can I add to the mentoring piece, Jacqueline?
Oh, okay.
Quickly to the mentoring piece, Kimberly, that's such a great point. And we can take it upon ourselves as women to do that. And then we can also really push for structural mentoring as well. And there I would just appeal to everyone here to not just take it upon yourself, definitely do that, but also, you know, go talk with your HR, go talk with, you know, is there a diversity, equity, and inclusion department, a leg in your company that can look at that. There are definitely many structures around that. Allyship is another thing. Sponsorship, where somebody's really talking your case behind your back. You know, they're just really championing for you. So get in touch and advocate for that as well at a structural basis.
Okay. Whew. Wow. Lots to take in. Wow. All right. So my next question, actually, what's interesting is that these answers are flowing into the other questions. So I'm actually changing my game plan here as we speak. But so the next question then actually kind of flows in. How can we as organizations help New Jersey women get back on their feet? So some of it we've already kind of hit upon, but how can we, as whether we're for-profit, nonprofit, businesses, communities, what can we do to get, you know what I mean, women back on our feet? And I'll let that sit for a second. And
so I was just going to jump in, Jackie, and because I think that my colleagues will be able to address this obviously as well, since they're working with organizations who are working directly with women. But I just wanted to also think about, you know, another way organizations can help and individual women can help is look for an organization that is trying to get some of the policies we have in the state of New Jersey to work. And so we have, for example, we're doing a study right now. New Jersey is one of the leaders and has been in paid family leave, but the uptake, so we have a policy that virtually all employees in New Jersey are eligible for paid family leave. You all pay into it. If you work and get a paycheck, you'll see that you contribute to that fund. It's one of the most, but the problem is, you know, legislation, it was a huge victory in New Jersey that advocates have been working on for years and years, but the implementation of the policy really lags behind for a whole bunch of reasons that I won't take time up with. So as we're thinking about policy, you know, which is part of the solution, but employers also, you know, and nonprofits, there's a lot of different strategies and solutions that come to the table and help all families and all women. But we really need to talk with the communities about what works for them, right? So if in those childcare deserts, you know, what we need to make sure we're doing is talking to the women who live in those childcare deserts, talking to the dads, talking to the moms, talking to what the community needs so that the policies align with the voices and the needs of families that have been left behind historically. And so paid family leave is kind of a hot mess. It's a wonderful thing, but the uptake has been lacking for a lot of reasons. And so those are things where New Jersey has a number of fairly progressive legislation What we can do is, whether you're an advocate or a researcher or someone else in the community, is join forces to get those things to be working for the people who they're intended to serve.
Okay. Anybody else?
Sure.
Yes, Key.
I'm looking through an educator's point of view, that, and a mother, that just dealing with the childcare, that if you're usually started in September, because everyone was shut down between March of 2020 through June. So everyone was home. In September, so many mothers that had to choose between their job as an educator or stay home with their small children. And the balance was chaotic. It was unfair. Women would have to take off from work because their children's school would be in quarantine. So we really need policies that, I live in Burlington County, somehow all schools will have to have the same schedule. We know that New Jersey is known for its multiple school districts within a 5-mile radius. And when one school district is off and the other one's open, what do you do with your children? And then when you talk about with the remote learning, not everyone is, savvy with the computer. When you tell the person, I'm just speaking on my experience with my mother who's 80, she'll call me up at school and say, well, the teacher asked me there's a waffle. Like, I don't know what that is. So overall, my daughter will be absent from school. I think she had a total of, she was 5 days out of school, even though she was home, because she wasn't on the computer, because the person my mother couldn't navigate through the computer. So we really have to look through, like, if I live in one town in Burlington County and another school, I think all school districts somehow have to be on the same page. And that also means that the schools will have to update their HVAC system. One school shouldn't have something and another school does, because where they live in Burlington County. I'm just using Burlington County because it's where I live. So the inequalities in our schools, and just trying to tell people, well, you have to take off. And it was very difficult. I think so many women have lost so much money working as educators because they had to exhaust all their sick time to stay home with their children. So.
Okay. Farheen?
I completely, I am a mom to a boy and a girl, twins. They're sophomores in high school. And one thing is for sure, I'm totally living that too, right? As a mom to children, they're a little older than what I'm sensing here in the room. But what I also wanted to sort of just throw out there is also this whole element of mental health that, we are definitely, as women / moms, dealing with the practicality of it, of working from home, the practicality of juggling work and the kids' needs. And the younger they are, the more we have to be present and help them. But then, I got into COVID with my kids. They're teenagers, right at that very tender age of hormones and emotions, right? So it was, it's mental health has been a big deal at our house. How are we thriving? This social isolation. And so when I was doing my research for today as well, mental health kept coming up as one of those big items that women are still paying. So what else can we do in order we can do structural changes in terms of childcare? One. Number two, mental health as well, right? Let's advocate in policy-wise for paid mental health days, right? I mean, it should absolutely, we have sick days, right? Let's also, advance this whole mental health area. It's important now for as a family unit, not just individuals, but even as a family unit. So I just thought I would throw that out there for some thinking as well.
No, this is awesome. And then Rebecca.
Yeah. So I just wanted to add to the conversation with regards to, I think it was young lady thing who spoke, but with regards to the education, as far as the student, I think what the schools need to do is to provide some sort of training for the students and how to navigate through their own classroom now that it's virtual. In addition to writing, now this is prior to COVID, I spoke about this. I was also on the school board for 3 years. I spoke about the curriculum currently in New Jersey, how writing has been become obsolete. Yes, penmanship is one, but also typing. I took typing class when I was in high school, and writing. Students do not know how to write a decent letter to communicate with their teachers. And as soon as the pandemic hit, my daughter was sent home with a Chromebook, and her teacher, what is the first thing she did? She emailed her. And I said, now you want to communicate with her in writing, but you didn't teach her how to communicate with the opening sentences, dear so-and-so, thank you, closing. I said, but not to belabor what's not been done, but now let's put this as part of the curriculum. So one, communication, and that's from K through high school. Students need to learn how to email and communicate back and forth with the teachers, in addition to navigating through the classroom now that it's virtual, because that is, now I'm computer savvy, so with my my daughters, I was able to help with logging in, passcodes. Some of the passcodes are so long, it's ridiculous. They should have, come up with something else, smaller, simple passcodes like green, the letters that don't really correlate with, the numbers. Again, really thinking about the parents, because we are at work. So even if we're able to have our children stay with a neighbor or a sitter that they can just sit in their house so they can be on the laptop, or the grandparent, what does that look like? Can the student successfully navigate through his or her classroom without mom or dad? So I think some training sessions need to take place on the school level, outside of math class, science class, actual virtual learning, how to navigate through your classroom.
Okay. All right. So my last question for you, and I don't mean to, I promise to kind of keep this moving, and you are all giving such great advice and great insights that I think that we can appreciate. But my last question is going to be for this, because a lot of the women on the call obviously are women that, well, we've either retired or we are working and our children are older. We do have some that are younger children in terms of, we have elementary school age children. But then what about these young women who are not there? They're looking for jobs, they're looking for work, they're trying to get back on their feet. They were left out of the bag there when, in terms of like when it came time for companies to let people go because they couldn't pay their salaries anymore, right? So what resources can they use in order to get back on their feet? Because maybe they were in a good job, but oh no, the company's gone down and they can't get that job anymore and they have to go somewhere else. So what kinds of things can they do? And again, kind of the question of the actions, in terms of actions, what can they do to really navigate this thing? Because it's a different thing to look for a job, to look for, you have a job, but you got to look for another job. But, it's a lot. So how can we as organizations do that? Kim, because I see you raising your hand there. Thank you.
That's what we do. So I was anxious to respond to that, because we've had to change our approach very much to how we're supporting women. And it's different than just having a webinar and saying, okay, you're on your way now. You learn something and go, especially when we don't have the physical connection just yet. So one of the things that we've been doing is starting accountability groups. And there's small groups where we have kind of like the mentor role or a coach role that will just check in and keep the goals moving. Like, okay, you've learned this from this webinar. Now, what are we going to do to put that into action? So we're trying the accountability approach. We've also started teaching women how to network and how to leverage their network. Some women don't have what they would perceive as a network of women who can benefit their career. A lot of times we surround ourselves with people who are in the same situation as we are, and they don't have somebody outside of that reach that can help guide them and introduce them to people that are outside of that circle. So, teaching women literally how to use LinkedIn, how to connect with your friends, how to, introduce people, and how to not be afraid to say, hi, I'm looking at getting into this company. Can you introduce me to so-and-so? And getting over that confidence. I think the biggest thing that we've learned is that regardless of the fact of a woman working, not working, being unemployed, what kind of threads us together is the fact that women lack confidence for whatever reason. I think Farheen mentioned, if a man has, 60% of a job, the qualifications, they'll apply without hesitation. A woman needs to check every box in order for her to feel maybe good enough to apply. And then you add COVID on top of it, and she's juggling kids, and she's juggling caregiving and work, and it's too much. And then it's like the world is caving in on women. So as part of our approach, we've placed an emphasis on soft skills support. So emotional intelligence and the things that, maybe on paper a woman looks good, but when you get in front of somebody, you can see clear as day that there's no confidence and no emotional intelligence and whatever else. So working on those skills. We've done wellness checks. So any group, even like this organization, just picking up the phone and starting a phone chain and calling membership and saying, hey, how are you? Do you, are you in your job still? Are you afraid you're going to get cut? Do you need training? And then once you get the information, then connect them. The follow-up is the most important part. So once you know what they need, then you've got to follow up and connect them to that. There's an organization called Lean In. It's leanin.org. They have circles. It's like you would create small groups of women that will have a discussion and a journey together to explore different topics. They provide the curriculum for free. So if you wanted to talk about negotiating your salary or getting ready for an interview, it's a resource that's available that you can use. I can refer, I'm not going to take up the whole thing, but I can refer, if you guys reach out to our organization, whether you're in the south of the state or wherever, I can at least make the referrals for you, for your organizations and your community.
Awesome.
And I'll zip it.
And so I will preface this saying that we've got really like 2 to 3 minutes. So I'll, Farheen, if you want to say something, and then I really want to get into the breakout sessions and be mindful of time for people to,
Pardon me, Jasmine's had her hand up for a while.
I'm so sorry, Jasmine. Sorry.
I just wanted to add to the discussion. So my job was virtual before the pandemic. Even though I went into an office, everything I did was virtual. So I think moving forward, even with students, we have to kind of get them in the mindset that the job you might have, 15 years from high school is going to be virtual. So everyone I talk to, they're overseas. They're in India, Malta, Switzerland, Chicago, like in the US too. So I think like Rebecca said, with them knowing how to write emails and respond, that's all I do every day. It's write emails, respond to emails. And some of them are technical, some of them are hi, how are you doing type of emails. But I think there was no training. Like when I started working, there was no training on how do you communicate with people that you're working with through email. It was kind of just something you learned on the job. But I think it would be beneficial if that was something that was introduced into either high school or a college curriculum. Because I think it's important that people know how to communicate through the written word, like through email, because we're doing that 90% of the time. So that's all I wanted to add.
Okay, great. Farheen, you had something?
Just a little supplement. Kimberly, wow, I need to connect with you afterwards. This is what you're doing. Yeah, it's What it reminded me of is also something that I actually also work when I coach my clients. So they're already working, obviously, because I coach high potentials and I coach leaders. However, when it comes to women and this whole notion of lack of confidence, I mean, you really just hate saying it, but you know what? There's some reality to it. We do tend to, you know what? My work will speak for itself. It's fine. You know, I'm not going to brag. But when Kimberly mentioned LinkedIn, that was also a point that I also wanted to highlight. And I'm just going to piggyback off of that a little bit. That really get yourself as a young woman who has left her job, got unemployed, whatever reason you're not employed. Don't, you know, really get yourself out on LinkedIn. Get your name relevant, share learnings, reach out to people that you know already. There's one exercise that I want to share with you here in order to really build your confidence and know who you are. Many times we don't know what our strengths are, right? So this exercise was done at a workshop. It's very, very powerful and it's very simple. You literally text 3 people in your network, whether neighbors, friends, family, doesn't matter, but text them with the simple question, hi, I have a question for you. What are 3 things, or what makes me unique? What makes me unique? And text it out. And then when you get those wonderful answers, say thank you. And you know what? It just boosts you and it gives you that drive to continue. So really leverage your network as much as possible, even when you're not employed and you're looking to network even more.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so anyway, so at this point, what we would like to do is to put everyone in breakout rooms just to kind of, you know, gain some sort of just a takeaway. You know what I mean? What takeaway? And so each moderator will be in a room and you don't have to talk specifically about that. But this is what we're going to do. And Key Harris had to go leave. And so she says, thank you very much. And this is great conversation. I'm sure she'll see this again. And I'm just going to share my screen real quick. No, I'm not going to share my screen because we're just going to go right into breakout sessions. Okay. And if we can, Laura, are you, I know it's a little bit different from our go through. Are you ready to do that?
Yeah, I'm ready. The one room with Kitora Harris doesn't have a moderator, if you're okay with that.
Well, I was going to say was how many people are in that room?
3.
Oh, can you just assign them to different?
Sure, no problem. Just
Okay.
give me 1 second.
Okay, and then we'll do that. So while she's doing that, and the breakout sessions are only going to last like, you know, actually under 10 minutes. And I think that'll be enough to at least kind of get us into a good spot. I know that time-wise, that this is really, I think it's really been a very good conversation. And I so appreciate you all coming this morning and doing this. And if you have to leave, I totally understand. As you said, we're going to be, you know, my goal is 11:30 to be mindful of everyone's time. Okay. And so that is my goal. But I just do think that the ability of people coming together to at least unpack it for like, even if it's 7 minutes, we can do that. I think it's worth it to do that. Okay. Laura, when you're ready. Okay.
We're ready. I'm going to pause recording right now as well.
Okay, so much for coming this morning and participating in the group. Normally we would have time for you know, really individual comments, but I do want to be mindful of people's time. You know what I mean? Of all of this, of course, and it was a lot, but certainly we can revisit all of these things again. And I certainly hope that you will take advantage of that to do so. And I cannot see the chat if someone wants to kind of read out one of the things that you've got going on.
He hasn't.
So more, okay. We aren't ready for another pandemic. We need to do more to join forces to support each other. Forming mentoring and coaching opportunities is important. Says I need to have a list of resources for women because I'm new and with my household composition right now, I couldn't participate the way I wanted to. Deborah says, thank you and would love to keep in touch. They're open to partnering on research, programming, etc. And she lists her contacts for the Rutgers Center for Women in Work. All stages in life have been affected by the pandemic, and the importance of the need for mental health support was something.
All right, well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for coming. And I'm going to stop sharing so I can see who's left. Thank you. And so just as you go about your day and you're thinking of conversations, just shoot us a mail or shoot other organizations and just kind of keep that connection going, because now we've got the conversation started. So let's keep it moving forward. And the last thing I'll say is that Jeannie Rojas had sent me what Toledo, Women in Toledo did. Well, they set up a hub that was kind of neat that had different resources on there. And so I'll send that out to you so you can look at it, just because I thought it was really cool. But so a shout out to everyone that was able to stay. Thank you so much. And if
everybody can also save the chat, right? The way it's set up.
Yes, I believe you can. So
hopefully you can save the chat if you want to save the contact information that's in there.
Is on the chat as you there's a file, okay, and there's also, hold on, let me see.
3 dots to the right of where it says file.
The 3 dots to the right, save the chat if you would like to save the chat.
How do you access that saved chat? I still don't know how you access that.
So if you go to chat, right?
Where it says to everyone, can you see?
Once you've saved it is what I mean. Once you've saved
How do you get back to it?
It goes to downloads folder on my computer.
Mine is asking me where I want to save it. So I'm saving it in my Google Drive.
Oh,
mine. So you can choose where to save it.
Huh, okay.
It's a .text file.
Gotcha. I got it. Thank you so much.
Right. So, right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, ladies. I won't take any more of your time. Certainly if you have a question you want to stay before we, really like roll out, certainly, but I know that there are those of us that have to go. So thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for putting this together.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you so much.
Hey, Jackie, are you going to do like a follow-up in like 3 months?
You can do that. Okay.
Me, I'll be back in the office. My work-life balance is going to go back to nothing. I need to have a discussion with management.
Awesome. No, you know what? We can, but you have to set that up, girl. You are lovely. That is my challenge to you.
I'll put it
burnt to a crisp.
I'll put it on my list of to-do.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did anyone have a question or before as we're leaving, and we're just, because we'll have to go. Jeannie, it's so good to see you. I miss you already. And you're not even in the state anymore.
I'm going to stop recording if that's okay.
Yes.
So, yes.